Hi, and thank you for joining us today. If your day is just starting, I hope you have a good day. If it is the case that you're already halfway through your day, I hope that your other half of the day goes better than the first half. If it is the case that you've just been through your day and you're now relaxing, I hope that you can join me as we have a silent reflection. We have just been through a very difficult couple of days. For some people, harder than others. For the families involved, um, even harder. Nobody can ever understand what it is that you're going through. Nobody can imagine what it is that you're going through. If this is you, I hope that you take heart, and I hope that things begin to make sense as the days go on. Sometimes it would take longer. Other times, you're going to need to give yourself the opportunity to say, you know what, I don't understand it, but there is something here. I say this because actually, before I say that, I'll go by saying this. Nobody is meant to know everything. No matter how learned you are, no matter how much exposure you've had, no matter what difficulties or experiences that you've had, your experience is your experience. And nobody else understands it until you share that experience. People might have similar experiences, but your experience is tailored to you. And for that reason, it is important that we have an opportunity to not only tell our stories, tell your story, but also be open hearted enough to listen to somebody else's story. In doing that, we get to understand where it is their argument is coming from. Because it is easy to tie people into certain sort of groups and boxes when they come out with certain arguments. We do this all the time as a society because I believe it helps us to cope better if we can just say this set of people, because of their looks, fit into that category. This set of people, because of their presentation, their dress sense, they fit into that box. This set of people, because of what it is that they represent, fit into that group because of the tattoos they've got, because of the country they come from. We as humans make sense of this doing that. For some people, not until you actually go and unpick that are you able to kind of go, it's not entirely factual, is it? And that brings me to the point. I've spoken previously about how in the good old days, if I disagree with you, I would explain why I I disagree. And if it is the case that you don't believe my point, you will tell me why you don't believe that. You don't believe that the point of view I hold is logical. But what we can do is go back and forth. Sometimes we use evidence to back that. For example, some people would say, do you know that because you don't beat your kids, that's the reason they behave as badly as they do? If you did that, you would be able to get more control over them. And then, if it is the case that you don't agree, you would say, actually, I don't know if I entirely agree with that. It's there are times where you have people have been exposed to that sort of lifestyle, being beaten up from a very young age, and they still end up in a situation where they're just as naughty. But here is the thing. My experience and your experience is different. So for some people, they were raised in a household where disciplining a child came in this form. They use physical chastisement. And in different countries till this day, that still happens. I am an example of that. I grew up in that generation where it was seen as the only way of raising a child. I, as a father who initially started that, but then changed my way of seeing things, mostly because of the career path I then went down and learned more about the psychological and emotional impact. And looking back at my childhood at some of the times that where the discipline that was used, I would say, were a little bit excessive. Now, that has shaped me in the way I am today and helped me to form the views I have today, coupled with my experience of growing up and exposure to the learning that I've had as a result of my career path. But there are some people that haven't had that experience and that exposure, and they still feel adamantly that that's the only way you raise a child. They believe that in a household where that level of discipline, what is classified as discipline, helps to instill fear and helps to teach children consequences, which then means that they're well behaved when they go out there. I use these as examples, by the way, and it's not the main focus of this. Argument can come from both ways to say the people that were disciplined still end up doing things later on that you would have thought the line of discipline you used would stop them from doing that. And argument the other way would say people that were not disciplined has meant that they become soft in society and not being able to cope within the space out there because they've not been taught what consequences are. We can go back and forth about this. But where does it go from me and you just having a debate, trying to understand each other's point of view? You expose me to literatures and experiences that you've had. I expose you to experiences and literatures and researches that I have to back my point. So, you know what? I am just gonna take you out because you don't agree with me. In 2025, this is what seems to be the order of the day. That presidential candidate, I don't like them. And because I don't like them, this is what I'm going to do. That person arguing is on a different side of the bench, either a Democrat or a Republican. I'm gonna go and take them out. How does that make sense? Now, I suppose the point there is, what gives you the ultimate power to make that decision? If their point of view is different to ours and we think that is not something that we agree with, what stops us? What stops you? What stops me from listening to it? Do we have to attend the rally? Do we have to watch the channel? Do we have to listen to it on the radio? I'm pretty sure over the course of our lifetime, we have had 1, 2, 3, 4 people that we don't agree with. That could be in the workplace. That could be in school. That could be in our own family. That could be within the circle of friends that we keep. A friend of a friend that has a different view that just really gets on your nerves. And every time you see them, it makes your skin crawl because of the rage that it causes inside of you. If that person is making us feel like that, what does that say? I suppose we can think about this in 2 ways. We can think about it in the sense that, one, we've got a lot of stuff that we need to deal with. A lot of things that we need to deal with within ourselves. What makes that person just showing up takes us to that level, and what is it that we feel we can do about that? And is it really healthy to hand somebody that level of control and power over us? Because that's a great deal of power. Because it'll be surprising for you to realize that that person doesn't go to bed thinking about you. That person doesn't go to bed thinking, you know what, I hope that you're still angry. They just go about their normal day. The person possibly doesn't even know you that much. Or when they would mention your name, you don't even come to their mind. And they have to try and describe, is that person that looks like this? To them, you just look like everybody else. You don't stand out to them. The story of Charlie Kirk is one that we don't need to agree with wherever it is we sit on this side of the fence, but one we need to reflect on, in the sense that if you've heard it or you haven't heard it, maybe I just give a little context into this. Is I believe he's a Republican that goes around campuses debating different people, a huge fan of Donald Trump, if I remember correctly. I've seen a few of his debates, and I've seen some where I found it hilarious in sense of how some of his points doesn't always align when he's arguing with certain people, and it doesn't follow through with the points that he makes, but kind of jumps around the space when he's having an argument. That I think is funny, but you can't ignore the fact that he is an intelligent man. I'm trying to remind, we take our point of views away on how we feel about him to start with, based on his political opinion, and just see what he represents as a human, a husband, a dad. And then let's think if it was something that warrants the action that was taken because of the way he views the world around him. I know I've held views that are different to other people, and people hold views that are different to mine. But does that warrant somebody taking you or taking me, or better still, taking a member of our family out? Does that warrant that? What makes people feel like they are now the judge and jury? So now that's done. Now what? We're going to go take the next person that doesn't agree with us, and the next one that doesn't agree with. Where does it end? Some people would argue that it is because of the access that people have got to different type of guns and stuff like that. I don't entirely know, and I'm not entirely sure if that's the main reason. I live in the UK, and I spoke previously about knives. In the UK, we're not legally carrying guns everywhere, but people are still being taken out with knives. So it doesn't matter which side of the planet we're staying or living. People that have an intention of doing horrific stuff will find a way of doing it. Yes, could they be a better sort of censorship and restrictions around carrying any of these weapons? Yes. For the people that are using it appropriately, should they be penalized for it? I would say no. But with stuff like this, you always have a few people that would ruin it for other people. That is human nature. But I suppose the thing is, when does it stop? It's him today. It's who tomorrow. Everybody's angry about what it is that they're going through in their lives. And I get that. The cost of living crisis. People can't feed their kids. People can't put a roof over their head. They can't afford a home. They can't. They're working and it feels as though they're still drowning. I get all of that, and all of that hatred and anger has to go somewhere. I get that. But how about we think about the actions, the consequences of the actions, and really think, is that what the intention was? Because if it wasn't, we've just cost a child or children their parent. They can never have the opportunity again to laugh, to smile, to get comfort when things ain't going well. Because that's been taken away from them now, and that's it. The trauma that causes on that family is not one I would believe that had been thought through by the person that carried out this action. All I believe they were thinking about was, I've got to get him. I've got to get you. I've got to get your family. I've got to get someone. Without actually thinking how this trickles down to everyone else. We've got to be careful what we do, what we think about, who we associate ourselves with before we get drawn into things that we would regret. Either that be on the internet, because that's where a lot of this tends to take place, where we find people that think or have the same level of hatred, and we identify a person or people, and we feel those people not being around are going to be the reason why everything will be resolved. There's a place for a revolution. There's a place for taking back control, like people would argue. But are we saying that the people we believe installing them in power or a place of authority are unlikely to repeat the same things that we've just caused so much havoc to another family member? They're sitting there struggling whilst we're here thinking, That's okay. The thing that made me wanted to talk about it the most is there are still some people that think it's good that he's not here anymore because now he can't go around saying things. And then there's some people that fully understand that this is not okay. It's not okay. And we need to do something about this. And it starts with me and you being able to say no. Yes, I don't agree with this person or that person, but that's okay. We can have different views and still be able to coexist. We can have different views and still be able to see each other and respect each other. That's what humanity is all about. In the good old days, we have a fight and then we shake hands. What happened to that time? We are talking about development and growth of the human race. And sometimes I question if these growths are for the better. In a time we've got technology and everything, we seem to be so disconnected from our own kind. We seem to see faceless people. We see people as machines that don't and shouldn't exist. And then we treat people like that. There is no need for violence. And if we do feel there's a need for it, there's a place where we can do this legally. You can go in a ring, in a boxing ring, in an MMA ring to do these things. If you've got the heart for it, not everybody has. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. What's your experience? And I hope that we can begin to turn the tide in a different direction. Until next time, it has been Kings.